In this video, I'm going to show you an example of how do I use functions to create tables. Now, just to make this video short, I already got everything done. So I'm just going to go through the code to explain what do I have here. So let me just go ahead and list the items that I have in this. So you can see here I have two files, index.php and my-function.php. Let me start with index.php. And here's my file. Now, just to give you an idea here, inside the head, I just decided to give my table some style here. This is something related to CSS and HTML. I'm not going to stop here. I decided that the table and the rows and the columns are going to have a border of 2 pixels, solid black color. I decided the width of the whole table is going to be 40% of the width of the screen or the browser, and margin to be auto, so it's going to be centered. And then after that, I decided that the text inside every single cell will be aligned to the center. So this is, again, just CSS stuff. Now, here's my PHP section. At the beginning, I am requiring my PHP, my fun.php file, which is where I'm going to create the function that's going to generate the table. In this example here, I created two-dimension arrays. So I have an array called cars, and I have another array called courses. Inside the array of cars, I basically have 3 elements. Each element by itself, it's an array of 2 elements. That's what we mean by two-dimension array. If you want to visualize those arrays, it's like a table where I have 3 rows and 2 columns. The first column represents the brand name. As you can see here, we got Benz, we have BMW, we have the Toyota, and the second column represents the color for that car. So this is a two-dimension array where I have 3 rows and I have 2 columns. You have to imagine that. The second two-dimension array is what we call courses, what I call courses. And in this courses, I have 4 elements. Each element by itself, it's an array by itself. So this is, again, a two-dimension array. And if you look at this array, I will have 3 rows, and every single row represents a course, and then I'm teaching, and every single course has 3 columns. The first column is the course number, the second column is the credits, and the third column is if it's on ground or online. So you can see here, those are what we call two-dimension arrays. I created a function, I called it make a table, and I'm passing cars to that make a table. So it's going to use the array of cars to generate that table. And then after that, I have another function, I called it same function, make a table, and I'm passing the courses. Now, inside my fun.php file, there is a function called make a table where I defined how am I supposed to use the data that I'm passing, which is the array cars and the array courses, to generate 2 tables. This is, again, part of why PHP is dynamic. I'm going to create a table, and that table basically could be any size, could look like anything you want. It's not going to be specified by a specific number of rows and columns. Nope. It's whatever the table, whatever the array is. So let me just exit, and let me show you that file. And here it is. So let me just start line by line. At the beginning here, you can see I use the keyword function, make a table, and I'm passing the array. The array is going to be received here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, I need to figure out how many rows that array will have and how many columns that array will have. Again, I'm passing a two-dimension array. So by counting the whole array, like I'm doing here, is going to show you how many rows you have. And then here, for the number of columns, I'm taking the first element of each array, my array of 0, to tell me how many columns there. So those 2 functions basically will tell you how many rows you have there and how many columns you have there. Right after that, I'm creating the table here, and I'm closing the table at the bottom here. And what I'm going to be doing here, I'm going to be scanning that array, the two-dimension array, row by row. And that's what I'm doing here. You can see here is for r equals 0, as long as r less than the rows, increase the r by 1. This is the for loop that's going to scan the rows of that two-dimension array. And again, what I'm going to be doing, again, since I'm scanning rows, so I'm going to be creating a table row, and I'm going to be closing the table row here. Now, for each one of those rows, I will have another inside for loop that will scan them column by column. Again, it's very important to imagine the situation here. You have a two-dimension array. Okay, think about a two-dimension array as a table. So whenever you want to scan them, you go row by row, and for each row, you go column by column. And that's what I'm doing here. Now here inside this for loop, I'm going for column for c equals 0. As long as 0 is less than the column, then c++ here. And what am I doing here? I'm creating the TD, which is the table data. And for each table data, I'm having access to the element inside that row. Look at this part here. This part here will give you access to element by element. So, for example, when r equals 0, that's the first row, and the column is going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It depends on how many columns you have. And then after that, r is going to be moved to 1. So you move to the next row. Remember here, with arrays, we start counting from 0. So the 0 basically is the first row. 1 is the second row. So you're going to go row by row. And for each row, you go column by column. So what's going to happen here, when you're going to pass the array, it doesn't matter what is the size of the array. Your program will be able to dynamically and automatically figure out the number of the rows and the number of columns. And based on those numbers of rows and columns, is going to generate that table. And it's going to scan the tables row by row and column by column. So for example, let's imagine we have 3 rows. So at the beginning, and 4 columns. So at the beginning, this r is going to be 0, and then you're going to go column for 0 and 1 and 2 and 3. And then after that, you're done with the first row with all the columns inside. You move to the second row. The second row is going to be 1. So r is going to be 1, and the column is going to go 0, 1, 2, 3. And then you go to the third row, which is basically when r equals 2. And you keep going, keep going, keep going until you're done. This basically would generate that table that I was talking about. And then if you go back to the index, I'm calling those functions and I'm passing the cars and I'm passing the chorus. And then I'm using the style that you have here to style that table. So if I go here to my server and open it, this is how the table will look like. You can see here BMW red, Benz black, Toyota green. Remember here, 3 rows, 2 columns. And you can see that this is the row, this is the first array that I passed. Now the second array, you can see here, you got the course title, you have the credits, and you have whatever, whether it's online or on ground. But again, the beauty of this is the number of rows and the number of columns totally relies on the size of your table, of your array, which basically will make it dynamic. So this is again how this whole thing works. I hope this will give you a really basic idea about how important functions are. Now imagine again, you're creating a website for the government, and in this website of the government, you're supposed to show me table of information. Now instead of me writing the table for each array or writing the data for each database, I can automatically just generate one small function, the one that you saw inside my function.php, and it's automatically going to be generating it for you. This will save you a ton of time. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later.